So we're back here playing with our line boring setup again. Last time we were here, we did the 5 1/8 inch bore, 5 1/4, excuse me. I didn't even keep the drawing in my mind since we made up a size. And suggestion was made, lots of suggestions were made. One was that if we hadn't welded it to the table, we could have put it on the lathe over there. And the truth is, even welded to the table, we could still put this on a lathe. We just need a bigger lathe than we have here. And we'd like to buy one. If any of you on the West Coast have one for sale, we might be interested. We'd like to have a vertical turret. But anyway, for an affordable price. Anyway, yeah, the whole idea is to show line boring doing stuff. We bored the hole through there. If you saw that and you didn't see the setup, there's a lot of information in the setup video, which is separate, that's real good. We're going to do a little bit of facing here today. And we can't do too much because we have stuff welded in our way. We didn't really think about facing when we were first doing this. Now, for facing, there's also various facing tools, just like there are on your regular machine tools that will feed out. But the common way it's done in the field on stuff like this is you just come in very, very gently. Okay. Very gently. Make sure that your tool is tight, which it was. And normally we don't do this. We're really overworking this size of shaft for what we're doing. And we'll probably have to rotate our insert. Yes, we need to rotate our insert. And that was one of the things also, as far as people commenting, that we should not use a Allen wrench on a Torx, which this is not a Torx. This happens to be a metric size, and that is where we had a little bit of a less than perfect fit last time. So yes, you should use the correct driver for the tool, but it was not a matter of Torx versus Allen, it was a matter of metric versus inch. They were real close, and I had grabbed the wrong one at first last time. And as you can see, yes, that is not the most wonderful way to do things. That's a little way too big of a bite. Try going back a little bit. Yeah, that's more of a bite than I had first set it on, so it had been slipping out the whole time we were doing that. Usually what you're doing on a piece of equipment when you're doing this, it's an older piece of equipment, the bucket's worn to, the bucket or the frame, whichever part you're doing. The other part's also worn. When you get done making your steps on there, you come in with a disc grinder and you put the flat face of the disc around it, you surface it out a little bit more, and then you make some shims to go in between there if you want to take up the slop. You're not trying to make an exactly perfect faced side as if it was brand new, because that's a different thing from what you're doing some of the time. Good, still run. I don't know if you caught it or not, but when we had that lock up there, there was some of the magic smoke came out of the motor, but it does seem to still be working. So I'm going to add earplugs to the equation. I was going deeper trying to decide if I wanted to take this divot out or not. And actually, that's just because we're not quite square with the surface. I'm going to go a little bit deeper. I will. I'm going to try and take that out too. I'm going to surface a little bit more. But I'm also going to double check, make sure the tool has not vibrated loose. Because it is making some squealing noise that could make it come loose. Okay, now we can use just direct eyeball. We could put some paint or bluing on there. If this had to be a real precision situation, to put a bearing stop to one of your bearings. You put a shaft collar, you get the ones that come in 2 halves, you put them over your shaft. They're real handy to have when you're doing this kind of stuff. Just in general, they're good to have. Then comes the next question, which is, how greedy do you want to be with your facing? The more greedy, the easier to make your steps flat. Yeah, it wasn't moving. The more greedy, the harder to get the feed right. I think it wasn't moving because I think I actually got it bit into the shaft that time with the set screw. Bit into the tool, I mean. It's not too much. Yeah, we can go a little further. Not that it matters, we see how it's done, but we might as well go a little further and make it look more like a face instead of just a little baby ridge. We can't go out past this though. That time I'm taking a pretty big cut. We'll be cautious. They were a little too proud. You get the idea. I could have seen that coming sooner, but there was a camera in the way. Okay, so that's how you can face there. Probably we will. We're planning on going on with this a little bit more and doing a couple more things just to see some stuff. There, this is a little fancy. This kind of gets out of the idea of the, you know, doing it with a cheap thing there. We're going to make a mount so that we can put this on either up here at the drill or out on the line boring, and that will allow you to do end boring in holes. It also allows you to turn your bar backwards and turn shafts the same way that you would turn them on a lathe. And I also want to do one other thing before we transition to trying out our bore welder, our fancy one that we bought, that fancy Chinese one, which those are available still. I told people that that was not available anymore. What it actually was Amazon didn't want to admit that they were in stock since I'm in Alaska. So I found out a trick about Amazon, and eBay sellers are doing the same thing. They tell you it's out of stock or doesn't exist. You can't even find it in a search. So I have to lie to Amazon or eBay and tell them that my address is down in the States somewhere so that I can find out that it exists, ship it to somewhere else, have it shipped to me, which is what I had to do with this the first time too. For whatever reason, they decided they didn't even want to acknowledge that it existed anymore when I went back later to look at them. But these inexpensive line boring rigs do work, do still exist. But we will, I want to set up, before we even go to that one, the number one thing for portable machining is just like safety, it's your brain. That's the number one thing. It's not the perfect tooling. I want to carry this out with that theme as far as we can. I want to do some, well, we're going to do some fairly fancy stuff with this anyway. I won't even mention today what we're going to do. And then another thing too, which came up with talking of line boring, is it line boring or is it a line boring? And you can go back long ways in documents and really not get a settled situation of what it is. A lot of the people like that, that's just called a portable field boring unit is what they call it. They don't even call it for line boring. My guess, but this is still just my guess, is that line boring originally came from line shafts. When we had a line shaft in shops, it's an old term, and they would Babbitt pour, and if they want a little better fit on the bearings, you would be using your line that you're doing to add a bit on and bore that out so you don't have to just hand scrape it all for your extra bearings. That's my guess of where the idea of you're using a line shaft to bore with. That's just a guess. Now, the other place where the term a line boring comes in is when you get with engine blocks. Well, you may bore an engine block for lining it all the way through, like if you were making a brand new Model A engine. if you had a used engine and the block had warped, gotten out of position, too much load from a bad crankshaft, and the bores were no longer in alignment, it was common in the 60s and 70s when I was first going to automotive shops having them, they would say, we have to align bore it. And that, for me, was the first place I heard the term align boring, was that they were align boring the engine block bores so that they were the same. Part of what people would consider blueprinting a lot of times. And blueprinting is another term that doesn't really mean what it means, but another story. Anyway, we'll play with this some more. That's one of the ways you can face with just moving your tool out. Try to get it tight enough. Don't be too greedy, because otherwise your tool's going to fly out and it'll even get bent, possibly. So we no longer have our fancy high-tech tool the same as it was, made out of mild steel. Of course, we could put it in press, or might as well just fix it right now. We don't need to put it in press. We have better ways to do stuff. You know, a lot of times guys go looking for the extra tools when you don't need them. I'm not sure if we have our anvil over here or where we put it. Because we do have an anvil, we really do. But on the other hand of that, it really doesn't even matter where our anvil is. I bet it's under there somewhere. Oh well. We could use pretty much anything. And we can just go ahead and repair our precision tool to its precision glory. And as they say, good as used.